Tom Williams climbed the narrow wooden stairs to his mother's attic. The steps creaked under his feet, just like they had when he was a boy sneaking up to look for Christmas presents. But today was different. Today, everything felt sad and empty. 3 months had passed since Margaret Williams died. 3 months since Tom had to say goodbye to the only parent he had ever really known. The small house in Manchester still smelled like her tea and old books, but it felt so quiet now. Too quiet. Margaret had been a librarian for 40 years. Every morning, she would wake up early, make her tea, and walk to work with a smile on her face. She loved helping people find the perfect book. She loved the quiet corners of the library where she could read during her lunch break. She was a simple woman who lived a simple life. But Tom had always wondered about some things. Why did they never go on holiday like his school friends? Why was all their furniture old and worn? Why did his mother spend hours mending his clothes instead of just buying new ones? When he asked her about money, she would just smile and say they had everything they needed. Now Tom was alone in the house, trying to pack up his mother's things. He had already sorted through her bedroom and the kitchen. The attic was the last place left. Boxes and boxes of old photographs, books, and memories filled the small space under the roof. Tom picked up an old box and carried it to the window where the light was better. Inside, he found his old school reports, some of his mother's teaching certificates, and a few family photographs. Then he noticed something strange in the corner. Under his grandmother's old quilts was a wooden chest he had never seen before. The chest was small but heavy. It had a tiny lock on the front, but the key was nowhere to be found. Tom looked round the attic until he found an old screwdriver. He carefully broke the lock, feeling a bit guilty about damaging something that had belonged to his mother. When he opened the chest, Tom's eyes went wide. Inside were bundles and bundles of letters tied with red ribbon. There were photographs of children he did not recognize. Some looked very sick, lying in hospital beds. Others were smiling and playing, looking healthy and happy. At the bottom of the chest was a thick leather journal. Tom opened it carefully and saw his mother's neat handwriting on the first page. What he read made his heart stop beating for a moment. I pray Tom never finds this, but if he does, I hope he will understand why I kept this from him. Tom sat down on the dusty attic floor. His hands were shaking as he turned the page. What he read next changed everything he thought he knew about his mother. For 30 years, Margaret Williams had been living a secret life. Every month, she had been sending money to families with sick children. Not just a few pounds here and there. Hundreds of pounds, sometimes thousands. Money that could have paid for holidays, new furniture, better clothes for Tom. As Tom read through the journal, he found names and addresses of families all over England. The Johnson family in Liverpool whose son needed heart surgery. The Brown family in Leeds whose daughter had cancer. The Davis family in Wales whose little boy needed medicine that cost more than most people earned in a month. Tom felt confused and hurt. Why had his mother hidden this from him? Why had she chosen to help strangers instead of making their own life better? He remembered all the times he had asked for things other children had: a new bicycle, a family trip to the seaside. His mother had always said they could not afford it. But as he read deeper into the journal, Tom began to understand. His mother wrote about meeting these families in the hospital where she volunteered on weekends. She wrote about seeing parents cry because they could not afford to save their children. She wrote about making a choice that would change her whole life. Today I met little Emma Thompson. His mother had written, she has the same rare condition as the Rodriguez boy I helped last year. Her parents are borrowing money just to pay for her medicine. They might lose their house, but without This medicine. They will lose their daughter. I know what I must do." Tom's eyes filled with tears as he read page after page. His mother wrote about taking second jobs to earn more money. She wrote about eating simple meals so she could send more help to the families. She wrote about feeling happy every time she received a letter saying a child was getting better. In one entry, she wrote, "Tom asked me today why we never go on holiday like his friends. I wanted to tell him that we are on the greatest adventure possible. We are saving lives. But how do you explain that to a 10-year-old boy?" Tom remembered that conversation. He had been angry with his mother for weeks because she said they could not afford a trip to Spain. Now, he realized she had been choosing between his happiness and another child's life, and she chose life every single time. As Tom closed the journal, he finally understood. His mother had not been keeping money from him. She had been giving life to children who would have died without her help. She had been a hero, working in secret, expecting nothing in return except the joy of knowing she had made a difference. Tom could not sleep for a whole week. Every night, he sat at his kitchen table reading the letters his mother had kept hidden for so many years. Each letter told a story that made his heart hurt and feel proud at the same time. The first bundle of letters was from the Jackson family in Liverpool. Tom untied the red ribbon and read the first letter slowly. Mrs. Jackson wrote in shaky handwriting about her 8-year-old son Billy. Billy needed heart surgery that would cost £15,000. Mr. Jackson worked in a factory and Mrs. Jackson cleaned houses. But together they only earned £12,000 in a whole year. The next letter was from Margaret to the Jackson family. She had written simply, "Dear Mr. and Mrs. Jackson, every child deserves a chance at life. Please use this money for Billy's surgery. From someone who cares." Tom found a bank receipt stapled to the letter. His mother had sent £15,000. Her entire savings account was empty after that day. The last letter in the bundle was from Mrs. Jackson 6 months later. Billy was completely healthy. He was back at school, playing football with his friends. Mrs. Jackson wrote, "We will never forget what you did for us. Billy wants to become a doctor when he grows up so he can help other children. You saved our son's life." Tom opened the second bundle. These letters were from the Thompson family in Leeds. Their daughter Lucy had a rare disease that could only be treated with special medicine from America. The medicine cost £3,000 every month. Without it, Lucy would die before her 10th birthday. Tom read his mother's journal entry about meeting the Thompson family. "I saw Mr. Thompson crying in the hospital corridor today. He told me they might have to sell their house to pay for Lucy's medicine. But even that would only pay for a few months. I cannot let this little girl die." Margaret had taken extra shifts at the library every weekend. She also found a job cleaning offices after the library closed each night. For 2 years, she worked from 7 in the morning until 11 at night, just to earn enough money to pay for Lucy's medicine every month. Tom found a receipt that made him cry. His mother had been buying the cheapest food possible: beans and toast for breakfast, beans and toast for lunch, beans and toast for dinner, for weeks at a time. Also, she could send more money to help Lucy Thompson stay alive. The third bundle was even harder to read. The Davies family from Wales had twin boys, both born with a condition that affected their kidneys, without expensive treatment. Both boys would need kidney transplants before they turned 15. The treatment cost £8,000 for each boy. £16,000 total. Margaret wrote in her journal, "How can I choose between 2 little boys? I cannot. I will find a way to help both of them." She took a third job working in a bakery on Sunday mornings. She sold her mother's jewelry. She even sold her car and walked everywhere she needed to go. Tom found more receipts that showed just how much his mother had sacrificed. She had worn the same winter coat for 15 years. The same shoes for 10 years. She never bought new clothes for herself. She never went out for dinner or to the cinema. She lived like a poor person so she could give everything to children she had never even met. As Tom read through more journals, he found the entry about Spain that broke his heart. Margaret had written, "Tom asked me today why we cannot go to Spain for a holiday like his friends do. His friend Peter just came back from 2 weeks in Mallorca. Tom looked so sad when I said we could not afford it. I wanted to tell him that we are on the greatest adventure possible. We are saving lives. But how do you explain that to a 12-year-old boy? Maybe one day he will understand that helping others is the greatest adventure of all." Tom remembered that conversation perfectly. He had been so angry with his mother. All his friends went on holiday with their families. They had stories about beaches and swimming pools and ice cream. Tom had nothing to share. He had salt for weeks, barely. Speaking to his mother now, he felt terrible about how he had acted. He realized his mother had been choosing every single day between his happiness and another child's life, and every time she chose life. She chose to save strangers rather than make her own son happy. At first, Tom felt hurt by this, but as he read more letters, he began to understand. His mother had not just been helping individual children. She had been teaching him something important without even knowing it. She had been showing him that the most important thing in life is not what you have, but what you give to others. At the bottom of the wooden chest, Tom found something that made his hands shake. It was a white envelope with his name written on it in his mother's neat handwriting. The envelope was sealed and had never been opened. At the top of the envelope was a date. It was written just 2 weeks before his mother died. Tom stared at the envelope for a long time. His mother had written him a letter, but never gave it to him. What did she want to tell him? What secrets were still hidden inside? With shaking hands, Tom carefully opened the envelope and began to read the letter his mother had written for him. Tom sat at his mother's old kitchen table with the letter in front of him. His hands were still shaking as he unfolded the white paper. The handwriting was his mother's, but it looked weaker than usual. She must have been very sick when she wrote it. "My dearest Tom," the letter began, "if you are reading this, then you have found my secret. I am sorry I never told you while I was alive." Tom had to stop reading for a moment. Even though his mother had been dead for 3 months, seeing her words made him feel like she was sitting right there with him. He could almost hear her gentle voice speaking the words. The letter continued, "I want to tell you how this all started. Do you remember when you were 6 years old and you broke your arm falling off your bicycle? We spent the whole day at Manchester Children's Hospital waiting for the doctors to fix your cast." Tom remembered the day clearly. He had been so scared, but his mother held his hand and told him funny stories to make him feel better. After the doctor finished, they had to wait for hours to make sure everything was okay. While we were waiting, his mother's letter continued, "I went to get us some tea from the cafeteria. That is where I met Mrs. Roberts. She was crying so hard she could barely speak. Her little daughter Emma was in the hospital with a very serious illness. The doctors said they could save Emma's life, but the treatment would cost £8,000. Mrs. Roberts and her husband did not have that much money. They did not have any money at all." Margaret wrote about how Mrs. Roberts explained that her husband had lost his job 2 months before. Emma got sick. They had already sold their car and borrowed money from everyone they knew, but it was not enough. The doctors said Emma would die without the treatment. I had £20 in my purse. The letter continued, "It was all the money I had until Haiti. But I gave it all to Mrs. Roberts. I told her it would help somehow. But £20 could not save a child's life. That night, I could not sleep. I kept thinking about little Emma and her parents. I made a decision that changed my whole life. The next morning, Margaret had gone to the bank and taken out a loan for £8,000. She sent all the money to Mrs. Roberts with a simple note, "For Emma, with love." She did not sign her name. Taking that loan meant I had to work extra hours to pay it back. Margaret's letter explained. But when I got the letter saying Emma was completely well, I knew it was worth every penny. That little girl grew up to become a nurse. She helps sick children now, just like someone helped her. Margaret wrote about how word spread quietly among families at the hospital. Parents would whisper about a mysterious woman who helped children when no one else could. More and more families wrote to Margaret asking for help. She could never say no. "I know you wondered why we never had much money," the letter continued. "Why I mended your clothes instead of buying new ones. Why we never went on holiday like your friends did. I wanted to tell you so many times that we were on the greatest adventure possible. We were saving lives." Tom wiped tears from his eyes as he read about all the jobs his mother had taken to earn more money. She worked at the library during the day, cleaned offices at night, and helped in a bakery on weekends. She lived on the cheapest food and wore old clothes so she could send every extra penny to families with sick children. "I watched you grow into such a kind and generous man." Margaret wrote, "I was so proud when you decided to become a teacher. You chose a job that helps children every day. Even though you could have earned much more money doing something else, you have the same heart for helping others that I do." Margaret wrote that she had worried Tom might feel angry or guilty when he discovered her secret. But she wanted him to know that helping those families had never felt like a sacrifice. "Every time I sent money to a family, I felt like the richest woman in the world," she wrote. "Every letter I received telling me a child was getting better made me happier than winning the lottery could have. You gave me that gift, Tom, by being such a wonderful son who never complained or demanded more. You made it possible for me to help others." Tom had to stop reading again. He remembered all the times he had wished for things other children had. New clothes, holidays, a bigger house. But he had never been angry with his mother for long. Something about her smile and the way she hugged him always made him feel like they had everything they needed. At the end of the letter, Margaret had written something strange. She gave Tom a set of numbers that looked like coordinates. "If you want to understand completely, go to this place. But know that I never expected you to continue what I started. I only wanted you to know that one person really can change the world." Tom picked up his phone and typed the numbers into the map application. The coordinates pointed to an address in Manchester, only 15 minutes from his mother's house. It was a children's hospital, the same hospital where they had gone when he broke his arm 26 years ago. Tom woke up early the next morning. He had barely slept because he kept thinking about his mother's letter and the mysterious coordinates. He made himself a quick cup of tea and looked at his phone again. The address was only 15 minutes away by car. The drive through Manchester felt different somehow. Tom had lived in this city his whole life, but today everything looked new. He kept thinking about all the families his mother had helped. How many of them lived in these same streets? How many children were alive today because of Margaret Williams? When Tom arrived at the children's hospital, he parked his car and walked round the building looking for the exact spot the coordinates had indicated. Behind the main hospital building, he found something that took his breath away. It was a beautiful garden filled with flowers and small trees. Benches were placed along winding paths, and in the center was a small fountain with clear water flowing. gently. But what made Tom's heart stop was a small bronze plaque near the entrance. The plaque read, "The Margaret Williams Memorial Garden, in honor of our guardian angel." Tom stood staring at the plaque for a long time. His mother had never told him about this garden. She had never mentioned that the hospital knew about her help. She had kept this secret too. A young woman in a white doctor's coat was sitting on one of the benches reading a medical journal. When she noticed Tom standing by the plaque looking confused, she got up and walked over to him. "Are you here about Margaret?" she asked with a kind smile. "I am Dr. Emily Clark. I worked with your mother for 5 years before she passed away." Tom could not believe what he was hearing. "You knew my mother?" Dr. Clark nodded. "Margaret came here every month. For years, she would sit in this garden and talk to families who were waiting for news about their children. She never wanted any recognition for what she did. But we finally convinced her to let us create this garden in her honor. She said it should be a place where families could find hope during their darkest moments." Tom felt dizzy. His mother had been coming to this hospital every month, and he had never known. What did she do here? Dr. Clark led Tom deeper into the garden. Along one wall was something that made Tom's eyes fill with tears. Hundreds of photographs covered the wall. Pictures of children smiling, playing, graduating from school. Next to each photo was a letter written in a child's handwriting or a parent's careful script. "Your mother saved over 200 children," Dr. Clark said softly. "But that is not the most amazing part of her story. Many of those children grew up to help others too. She created what we call a ripple effect of kindness that is still spreading today." As they walked through the garden, Dr. Clark pointed to different sections. This rose garden was planted by the Johnson family. Their son Michael is now a doctor here at this hospital. Margaret paid for his heart surgery 20 years ago, when he was just 7 years old. Tom saw a man in a white coat talking to a family near the fountain. Dr. Clark waved him over. "Michael, come meet someone special. This is Tom Williams, Margaret's son." Michael Johnson was about Tom's age with kind eyes and a gentle smile. When he heard Tom's name, his face lit up with joy and sadness at the same time. "Your mother saved my life," Michael said, shaking Tom's hand firmly. "I was dying of a heart condition when I was 7. My parents had no money for the surgery I needed. Then one day, a letter came with enough money to pay for everything. The letter was signed Someone Who Cares, but we later learned it was from your mother." Michael explained that Margaret's kindness had inspired him to become a doctor. "I work here now, and whenever a family cannot afford treatment for their child, I find a way to help them for free. I learned that from your mother. She taught me that helping others is the most important thing we can do with our lives." Dr. Clark introduced Tom to more people in the garden. There was Lisa Brown, who had become a teacher after Margaret helped her family when Lisa was 8 years old. Lisa now ran a charity that provided school supplies and clothes to children from poor families. They met Robert Taylor, who had started a foundation that helped families with medical expenses. Just like Margaret had done quietly for 30 years, Robert's daughter had needed expensive medicine when she was a baby. Margaret had paid for it all. Every person your mother helped learned the same lesson. Dr. Clark explained as they sat on a bench near the fountain. "She taught us that one person really can change the world. But more than that, she showed us that when you help someone, they often grow up to help others. It creates a chain of kindness that never ends." Tom looked round the garden at all the families sitting peacefully among the flowers. Children were playing while their parents talked quietly. Everyone looked hopeful, even though they were in a hospital dealing with serious illness. "Your mother did not just save lives," Dr. Clark said. "She taught people how to live meaningful lives. She showed us that true happiness comes from helping others, not from having things for yourself. For the first time since finding his mother's secret, Tom felt proud instead of confused. His mother had not been hiding her generosity from him. She had been showing him, through her example, how to live a life that mattered. Tom woke up early the next morning. He could not stop thinking about the coordinates his mother had written in her letter. He drank his tea quickly and got into his car. The address was not far from his house, but Tom had never been to that part of Manchester before. As he drove through the busy streets, Tom wondered what he would find. His mother had written that if he wanted to understand everything, he should go to this place. What more could there be to understand? He had already learned that his mother had been secretly helping sick children for 30 years. The coordinates led Tom to Manchester Children's Hospital. It was a big, modern building with lots of windows and a car park full of worried parents and visitors. Tom had been here once before when he was 6 years old and broke his arm. But he did not remember much about the place. Tom walked round the main building, looking for the exact spot his phone was pointing to, behind the hospital. He found something that made him stop and stare in amazement. There was a beautiful garden with flowers of every color. Small trees gave shade to wooden benches placed along stone paths. In the center of the garden was a fountain with clear water falling gently over smooth rocks. Everything was peaceful and quiet, even though the busy hospital was just a few steps away. But what really shocked Tom was a small bronze sign near the entrance to the garden. The sign read, "The Margaret Williams Memorial Garden, in honor of our guardian angel." Tom read the words 3 times before they made sense. His mother had a garden named after her. People at the hospital knew who she was. They called her their guardian angel. But how was this possible? His mother had told him she helped families. In secret, a young woman in a white doctor's coat was sitting on one of the benches reading a thick medical book, when she saw Tom standing by the sign looking confused and upset. She closed her book and walked over to him. "Are you here about Margaret?" she asked with a gentle smile. "I am Dr. Emily Clark. I worked with your mother for 5 years before she died." Tom's mouth fell open. "You knew my mother?" "Of course I knew Margaret," Dr. Clark said. "She came to this hospital every single month for years. She would sit in the waiting rooms and talk to families who were scared about their children. She would hold their hands and tell them everything would be okay, and somehow, it always was." Dr. Clark explained that the hospital staff had known about Margaret's secret help for many years. Your mother never wanted anyone to know what she was doing. But when families kept telling us about a mysterious woman who paid for their children's treatment, we put the pieces together. Margaret Williams was saving lives, one child at a time. Tom followed Dr. Clark deeper into the garden. She led him to a wall covered with hundreds of photographs and letters. Children's smiling faces looked back at him from every picture. Some photos showed babies in hospital beds. Others showed teenagers graduating from school or getting married. "Your mother saved over 200 children," Dr. Clark said quietly. "Every photo on this wall represents a life that exists because of her kindness. Every letter is from a family who wanted to say thank you." Tom read some of the letters. They were written in children's handwriting with colorful crayons and markers. "Dear Angel Lady, thank you for making me better. Dear Mrs. Williams, I am going to be a doctor like you helped me. Thank you for saving my little sister." But Dr. Clark had more to show Tom. "The most amazing part of your mother's story is not just that she saved all these children. It is what happened after she saved them. Many of these children grew up to help other people. Your mother created what we call a ripple effect of kindness that is still spreading today." As they walked through the garden, Dr. Clark pointed to a man in a white coat talking to a family near the roses. "That is Dr. Michael Johnson. When he was 7 years old, he needed heart surgery that his family could not afford. Your mother paid for the entire operation. Michael is now a heart surgeon here at this hospital. Whenever a family cannot pay for their child's surgery, Michael finds a way to do it for free. They met a woman named Lisa Brown who was visiting the garden with her young daughter. "Your mother saved my life when I was 8, Lisa told Tom. "I had a rare disease that needed expensive medicine from America. After I got better, I decided I wanted to help other children too. I became a teacher and started a charity that gives school supplies to poor families. Near the fountain, they found Robert Taylor, a businessman who had started a foundation to help families pay for medical treatment. My baby daughter needed an operation 20 years ago," Robert explained. "We had no money, but your mother paid for everything. When my business became successful, I knew I had to help other families the same way she helped us." Tom sat on a bench and looked round the peaceful garden. Families were sitting quietly among the flowers, some crying, some holding hands, all hoping their children would get better. He realized this was exactly what his mother had wanted, a place where people could find hope in their darkest moments. "Your mother did not just save lives," Dr. Clark said as she sat beside Tom. "She taught every person she helped that the most important thing in life is helping others. Now, all of those people are teaching the same lesson to their children and friends. Your mothers. Kindness will never end.